Right, we're live, Andy. Welcome back.
Yeah,
Here we are again.
Glad to be here again. Glad to be here again.
So it's hi from Nick in York.
And Andy in Crowthorne.
Where the hell's that, Andy?
Crowthorne it's about 30 miles west of London, about 10 miles south of Reading. If that gives people, they're the two biggest cities near us. That gives people an idea.
So we're a perfect example of how the north and the south can get on and there isn't a divide.
Yes.
Absolutely.
There was a delay there, sorry. Yes.
A delay? What? Oh. Anyway, listen, what are we on to today, Andy? We're back on the 5 pillars. In the previous 2 lives, we covered off pillars 1 and 2, which were perception and purpose. And
Yep.
if anybody wants to watch those, we're not going to go over them again today. They can go and have a look at the previous live streams that are available on the channel, where we go into a great deal of detail about those particular pillars. But today, it's preparation.
Yep. Well remembered, Nick.
Yeah, well remembered. So preparation. Andy, I'm going to sort of hand it over to you now about preparation. Tell me more. Tell me more. What's preparation? Why is it such an important pillar? Tell me all about it and the viewers.
Well, I think it's important. So if you start off with just asking yourself a question, so are you ready for the next phase of your life, or are you just hoping it will work itself out? And I think, a lot of us overlook the importance of planning. I certainly did. When it comes to major life transitions like retirement. And preparation is the key to making sure this next phase is not just good, but great. And if you've been feeling sort of unsure about how to move forward, I think this, hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about it.
So throw that question out again then, Andy. What was the question? That question.
Are you ready for the next phase of your life, or are you just hoping it will?
So that's 2 questions.
Do you want me
are you ready for the next phase of your life? And What was the other one?
Or are you just hoping it will work itself out?
Right. So, Andy, were you ready for the next phase of your life?
No.
At that point?
Right. Definitely not. I was just hoping it would work out.
And did it work out?
Eventually, yes, but not immediately, no. No.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah. Was I ready for the next phase of my life? No, absolutely not. I really wasn't. I mean, I've talked about this in quite a few of my videos. I mean, it was when I retired. It was a knee-jerk reaction to the death of my father, and I hadn't really given it much thought to the to the next phase at all. Yep. I really hadn't. Yeah. So, and did it just work out? Well, yeah, it kind of did eventually, but didn't work out on its own though. It needed a bit of effort from me.
Yes. Yeah. And I think mine was slightly different, but my retirement came upon me which I hadn't planned, and I just assumed it would carry on like the rest of my life. And things would happen, and it would all fall into place. But this time that wasn't quite the case.
Did you not prepare for your retirement at all?
No.
What? Zero preparation?
Zero preparation. So,
but did you know it was coming? Did you know it was coming, or did it just kind of happen on you like me?
No, so I left the organisation I was in, but not out of choice. It just happened. It was I lost out on the politics, which happens. I assumed that I would go from that to have a little bit of a break and then go back into doing something else.
Right. Okay.
And I thought that transition would be quite easy. So mine was it was a pivot more than a retirement. That's what I had in my mind. Looking back on it, it probably was a retirement.
I see. Because I remember talking to you about this in the last live that we did, and I think at the time you said that when that first happened, when you first left your employment, you considered yourself to still be on the job market. You were going to get another job.
Yes, I did, and I thought I would pivot from being in big corporates to going to small businesses and to doing consultancy and to setting up my own business and providing business support and business help.
I get you.
And because people had always come to me for advice and things like that, I assumed it was going to happen again, or I assumed that I would be the next role that was suitable would come up.
So before the end of your corporate job, okay. So
Yeah.
so your corporate job is coming to an end. How far in advance of that did you know it was coming to an end?
Probably about 3 months.
Right. So before 3 months, you had no inkling that it was coming to an end.
No, I didn't.
So this pivot you talk about, when did you think about that?
I was probably thinking about that before I left.
Oh, I see.
In that time, because basically I was
in the 3 month time. You mean in that 3 months?
Yeah. So and looking back on it, I should have realised what was going on. But anyway, so I came to the end of the financial year, and there was a reshuffle, and I ended up still on the board, but with no portfolio. So I didn't have a job basically.
Yeah.
But I was still gainfully employed and paid. And
I see.
And if you're in that position, I decided to stay because financially that was the better thing to do until they pushed me.
I see.
That's financially more conducive than stopping.
Yeah. So, so for you then, that was the end of your corporate employment. You were still potentially going to get another job, but you were thinking of a pivot into a different type of job, but still a job. Yeah. So, at what point did you go, "Oh, I'm not looking for a job anymore. I'm retired"?
Probably not until about 4 or 5 years ago.
All right. Okay. So
it wasn't.
Right. Let me get my brain around this, because you're 62 now, aren't you? And I think you said in the other video that you left that job at 47.
47, yeah.
Yeah, which basically means you didn't consider yourself retired until 57.
57, 58, probably a bit. Yeah.
So you had 10 years from 47 to 57 where what were you doing in that 10 years? Was that the pivot? Were you attempting to pivot, or what was going on?
Yeah, I was attempting to pivot. So I was attempting to do new things, to do different things. I had roles. I did have jobs.
Yeah.
So I had 3 different distinctive roles. One, a turnaround for a big corporation, which actually made me think I never ever want to work for a corporation again.
Right.
And then there were 2 startups, one with a law firm and one with an agricultural thing, but it didn't. Yeah.
Right. So you retired at 57.
Yes. Well, yes, but I actually think I retired. So this goes back to the question we asked about what is retirement.
Yes.
So I think retirement is pulling away from your full-time job and pursuing something that you want to do because that's the things you want to do.
Yeah.
Which is what I thought I was doing. Now, the fact I got paid for it as well was great, but that wasn't the driver. The driver was to do something very interesting and something that stimulated my mind.
But full time or part time or what?
Well, when I was doing the roles, yes, full time, but between them, no. So I would say out of that 10 years, I was probably in full time roles for about five years.
I see.
So about half the time I was in full time roles. The other time I was looking for stuff.
Okay. That doesn't sound like retirement to me. That sounds like you're still working, but you just got breaks in between.
Yeah, I think the way I look back on it, though, Nick, is it's sort of redefining or re-looking at it, and this is where this preparation phase comes in. So yeah, because I wasn't prepared for it, I was just trying to do stuff that I thought was right without. Yeah, we've talked a number of times because the experiences we've had and the number of things that we've done to try and change have changed.
Yeah.
We think there's a way that we can help people better.
Yeah.
So So what yeah, so that's my side. What about you, Nick? So where did you start
Well,
with
what point did I,
retirement?
what, in the sense of what time, at what point did I consider myself retired?
Yes.
Um, Certainly not at 44. No, I've said in my videos I retired at 44 because I kind of did, really. But when I was 44, I didn't consider myself retired. I considered myself taking a break to try and figure things out. But as it so happened, the figuring things out meant that I decided to retire.
Yep.
So it's splitting hairs, and I do get quite a lot of people in the comments saying, "Oh, you're not really retired. You've never been retired." Well, I kind of have. I retired. As far as I'm concerned, I didn't do any work for 4 years, and that was a career break. And then I decided to never return to full-time work, and I certainly didn't return to doing what I was doing before. So for me, I would say I was retired at, I guess, 48.
So what's your definition of retirement then, Nick?
My definition of retirement is a bit like the professional footballer thing. A professional footballer is a professional footballer until they're no longer a professional footballer, and then they're retired. They retire from being a professional footballer, and they go off and do other bits and bobs. And they don't necessarily have to work. They might do a bit of punditry, all that kind of stuff. And I liken it to that. Yes, my definition of retirement is that if you're no longer doing full-time work, either in the profession that you were in for 20, 30 years or in a new profession, you're not doing it full-time, you have elected to do either none at all or a bit of part-time work, I think you're retired.
Okay, so
right. And if I just if I can just clarify that, my dad was a policeman for 30 years, from age 26 to 56. He forcibly retired at 56 because they have to. So he retired from the police force at 56. He then took a job with a firm of solicitors, doing legal matters and things like that, police matters, a couple of days a week, sometimes only a day a week, some weeks not at all. Okay. And if you were to go and chat with him when he was, say, 60 doing that, and you say, "What are you doing at the moment, Tim?" He wouldn't go, "Oh, I'm a legal agent." He'd go, "I'm retired." And I don't see it any differently to my situation. I elected to bits and bobs, a couple of days here, a couple of days there, sometimes nothing for 6 months. Yeah. And those things kept changing. So as far as I'm concerned, 48 years of age, I was definitely retired. And in reality, I was retired at 44 because that's when I stopped my full-time job.
So I think that with the conversation we're having, it's I think your definition of retirement is what you make of it rather than what someone else makes of it.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is something we've talked about before. The fact that you start doing things you want to do because you want to do it, not because there's pressure on anybody else. Which is why, in my head, I think I retired at 47 because I stopped doing my career. I had lots of skills. So if you use the footballer analogy, you look at the people who were really good at football and they come out of it, but all their skills and all their experiences around football, so they're able to do punditry, which is sort of full time. They're working. So you work on Match of the Day or whatever it is. It's sort of full time, but they're retired from football.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd say I was retired from corporate life, but I had a whole load of skills that I still want to use, and I still do use occasionally, and I do want to use them still, but it's in a retired mode. It's so
I get you. I understand.
Yeah, so I think it's about the definition that you have, which I think is important in the preparation phase.
Okay, great. Well, if I can just sort of put a question out there for our viewers, what's your definition of retirement? Please leave it in the comments. What do you think retirement is, the definition? Do you have to be completely retired from work to be retired? Or can you do like Andy and I have done? I'd be interested in your thoughts. But Andy, back onto this topic then, preparation.
Yeah.
You and I both agree on this, that we did not prepare for retirement. I had a career break. Yours was a pivot. But the bottom line is the one thing we both have in common is that neither of us prepared. I probably had more time to prepare for it than you, because I'm just trying to get my brain around this. My dad died about a year before I finally exited my business. I knew I was going to be leaving that business a good 6, 7, 8 months before I left it. If I was actually supposed to stay on longer than that, to be honest, but I had a long time to think about it, and I didn't. I didn't prepare at all. So let's talk about preparation. Talk us through what you think are the component parts of preparation. Where does it start? What should you have done? What would you have done differently?
Preparation is part of a continuum. So, if I didn't really understand what it was that I wanted to do, so I didn't understand the perception time, that part of it.
Right.
It's understand there's a process and a way that you go through it. So for me, the preparation, because I didn't really understand what it was that I wanted to do, and I didn't understand what my purpose was, how could I prepare?
All right. So if you jumped in a time machine and went back, and there you are again, you're just about to set off on that journey again at 47. Are you saying that you still wouldn't prepare?
No, I'm not.
Knowing what you know now?
No, but what I would do is I would actually do the steps first. So I would get to understand myself better than what I understand myself now about what I want to do.
That's back to pillar one, isn't it? Perception.
That's to pillar one, perception. And I would spend time doing my purpose before I even got to the plan piece. Right. So, because if I don't know what my purpose is or what I think it is I want to do, which I thought I did without, it was sort of, that looks like a good thing to do. And
yeah.
We've had conversations, and I think you were the same thing. So you had things where you went, "Oh, that looks like a good idea," and you tried it,
and it wasn't.
And it wasn't. And you went, "Oh God, not again."
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I seriously considered returning to my old profession, in the same city, doing exactly the same thing I'd done for 20 odd years. Yeah. I seriously considered it because I couldn't find an alternative that floated my boat to the same extent.
And I think about it, Nick. We met 3-4 years ago when we were in that.
Yeah, heck, it must be. Yeah. During COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, that marvelous venture that we got involved in. At the time, I think we were still looking for our purpose, and we were still looking for what we actually wanted to do.
I knew what my purpose was. I was looking for an outlet for it.
Okay.
So my purpose, once I'd figured it out, was that I wanted to take what I'd learned, my knowledge of business in particular back then, but I wanted to take my knowledge, my experience, the things I'd learned along the way, the snakes and ladders game that I have life, and I wanted to share with others to be able to help them.
Yeah.
And I thought that particular venture that you and I were both in for a brief time might be the answer to that, because I knew what my purpose was. And that was business related. Yeah. So that's always been my purpose, but I found it difficult to find the outlet. But I didn't know my purpose. I didn't know what that purpose was until I was probably about, around that time before you and I went into that. That's when I figured it out. That's when I did the exercises we talked about. Yeah. The perception and the purpose. That's when I really dug into who am I? What do I want to do? What do I like? How do I feel I can impact on the world and people? And I figured out, right, I know what I want to do. I want to be able to help people who are behind me on the path. But what's the outlet? And that was the first thing I attempted, and that wasn't the right outlet. What about you?
Are
you still figuring out your purpose?
No, my purpose has always been helping people succeed. And that's been there since I was in my late 30s, early 40s. So I have that as a purpose, even when I was working.
I see.
And it's through my knowledge and through the way that I work, helping others be the best that they can be, whether that's at work or coached a rugby team. And I did a whole load of things which were around that. So I knew that was my purpose. I think the point is that, again, it's coming in a step too late, and it's coming in before I've done the perception. So and it's something you just hit on. That you knew what your purpose was. You thought that was an outlet, but because you didn't really understand really you as a person, your perception, it was hard. You're identifying things that you thought were an outlet, but actually weren't. If you stepped back and looked at it, you'd have gone, no, that's just not for me, because there's certain parts of it that I'm going to hate.
Yeah, I should have launched a YouTube channel years ago, Andy.
Yeah, you should have done.
Because that's the best outlet for me by a million miles, and
Yeah,
that probably comes across in my videos as well.
yeah,
But Andy, just wanted to read something from the guide, the Midlife Evolution Guide,
yeah.
which I think we're going to rename the Retirement Reimagined Guide, aren't we?
Yes, we
And
are. We're going to
if anybody wants to get a copy of that, there is a link in the description. But on this pillar that we're talking about here, preparation, it says pillars 1 and 2 should have left you knowing where you're going and why you want to get there.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we did. So we covered that off in the previous 2. So back on to preparation. We've figured it out. So we've got our feelings out there. We've figured out our purpose. Talk us through preparation. What do we need to do? What do we need to do now?
So you need to do a number of things. So first thing you need to do is create a clear roadmap. So set your goals, understand where you want to be, and break them down into smaller, manageable steps. So it's understanding. You start with the end in mind. So end in mind.
Okay, so a quick analogy then. Does that mean it's like you're going on a journey? Let's say you're sailing to New York, and you're in Portsmouth. So you know you're going to New York, and now you're in Portsmouth. Is it a bit like that?
Yes, but you don't know how you're going to get there. You know where you start and you know where you end, and you start off setting your goals. So how am I going to get there? So what do I need? What do I need to be able to embark on this journey?
Right.
So it's all the different components. So if you look at normal project planning that goes on in a business, it's for me to get there. What resources do I need? What things do I need to do? How do I plan my time? How do I make sure that when whatever vehicle, so if I'm sailing from Portsmouth to New York, how do I make sure I've got all the right things in place and all the right things to make sure that journey is going to be successful? So I don't just turn up without my passport or without a visa or whatever it is that you need.
Yep.
And it's understanding how you do that and making sure all those things, all those components are in place to ensure the best possibility of success.
Right. Okay. And well, what do you need then? Just before I do that, and I'm just going to put a comment up on here, and won't be a minute. Sorry about that, Anita. It looks like we've got a spello on our description. Yeah, which I'll have to put right. Yeah, that's what happens when you're just a one-man band or two-man band and you've got no support at all. You make spelling mistakes. So I'll sort that out, Anita. Thanks for pointing that out. Might even be able to fix it now whilst Andy tells everybody about the actual specifics that make up the roadmap. What would you do rather than sort of lecturing us on the subject? Why don't you tell us what you would have done differently? What were the component parts you would have done when you were 47 that you didn't do, but now you know what you could do? What would you do?
So a number of things I've done. I'd have built my network. I'd have looked for people who have the same views and outlooks as I do, or the same interests that I do.
Yeah.
I've got the right resources and tools in place. So whatever you need. So if you know where you're going to end up, you know what resources you need. So at the time it would have been, what I'm doing now is very different from what I thought I would do now. So I think the other thing you've got to bear in mind is that over time, it changes massively. What you want to do or what you think you want to do actually changes. Right. So what I want to do now is different from what I want to do in my 50s, and different from what I want to do in my 40s, and I dare say it'll be different from what I want to do in my 70s.
Sounds like you're skirting around the answer. So you're not giving us anything, Andy, of specifics of what you would do differently at 47. Yeah.
Yeah. So the analogy of so at 47 or at 47, what I would have done differently would be that from understanding my purpose, I would have actually had a goal in mind in terms of what I wanted to do, and I would have understood all the things I didn't want, And I'd have
Yeah.
so the different things I'd have done is I'd have built a network in a different way than I did.
Right. Okay.
So I thought the network I needed to build was around headhunters and people like that. I was wrong. It was completely wrong. I was looking at the wrong profile of person.
Yeah.
I also followed the route of, trying to get myself out there by talking about me as if I was someone who wanted to be employed full time, which wasn't the case. So I was using the wrong tools. I was using LinkedIn a lot.
Right.
I would have taken some of the ideas that I had. So I'd have taken the idea about the fact I want to give something back, and I would have turned them into concrete plans and actions. So things I have to do, and a process, which is the next phase, which is the planning. But it's about talking with other people, talking to people like yourself, people in the same position as you, which is where the network thing comes in. So if I haven't got a network of people who are the same as me or thinking the same as me, it doesn't matter about age or anything else, I'm not going to get that experience, and I'm not going to get that ability to be able to do it. But it's seeking out. I think it's so that the network bit. I can't emphasize how important that is.
The
Having a
what bit?
variety of
Sorry.
people.
The what bit, Andy?
The network.
Oh, the networking bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not everybody likes networking, Andy. What are you? I mean, you were a high-powered CEO, executive in a company, multi-billion-pound company. Yeah. A lot of the people who watch my channel are not that. They are. They're in the middle of companies. They're in the middle of those sort of things. I mean, what advice would you give them? Somebody who's say middle management in some kind of profession. What advice would you give them?
I still think it's important to understand your network and understand the people who are like-minded. I mean, we talked earlier about friendships, about people who are your friends.
Yeah.
And it's important to have people who will be honest and be very brutal in terms of holding the mirror up.
Yep.
Rather than people who will sit there and go, yes. So you're at a senior position, people would tell you, yes, what you're doing is right, potentially. So you're probably more used to doing that, but it's about finding your tribe or your tribes.
I understand. So the first important thing then is to nurture relationships with people within your network.
Yeah, or create a new network. So if and let's take a thing. If golf is your thing, create a network within a golf club or
right.
A golf.
I've got you.
Thing.
Well, let me share something with you, Andy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're 100% right. I made the same mistake. 100% made the same mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just use my father as an example again. He had a very successful retirement. Very happy, very fulfilled retirement. And for one reason and one reason only. During the years approaching his retirement, he put out feelers to lots of people to tee up the next phase of his life. Yeah. So, for example, he's a policeman. He's in the police station, and obviously he's one of the older policemen now. So he's in the station. He's not on the beat. I think he was the desk duty bloke, whatever they call them. I don't even know if they have them these days, but back in those days, you could actually go into a police station and there'd be somebody there to talk to. He was that man, and also the magistrate's court was bolted onto the police station. It was like a little market town with a police station next to it. And people were getting, not criminals, but people were coming into the court to be done for things and what have you, which meant that he met various solicitors. He bumped into lots of solicitors, and he nurtured that network of solicitors to be able to have one or two solicitors firms that then wanted to use him as an advisor after he left the police force.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. Quite a lot of those solicitors also played golf. My dad was a golfer. So he played golf with them as well, but he made a real effort to build his network, nurture his network on that side. That was professionally. Personally, he also made a real effort to nurture his network for his hobbies. Yeah, one of his big passions was gardening. He had an allotment, and he got in with all the local blokes, talking about turnips and carrots and what have you, and he was a volunteer at the local agricultural show and all this kind of stuff, and that was all nurturing his network. So you're 100% right. Did I do any of that? No. Not a jot. So when I left work at 44, I don't know why, but I thought my former employees who I'd worked with for the best part of 20 years would stay in touch and there'd be some contact. We'd maybe play golf and go see each other from time to time and all that kind of stuff. Never heard from them. Yeah, that was the end. And I hadn't. So that was that side of it gone. All my mates were still young; they were all 44, and all my mates were more in middle management. Okay, so they weren't available to do anything with because they were all working, for people like NatWest or whatever, working in banks and stuff like that. So they weren't available. Yeah. So, pardon my French, but I was screwed. Yeah. And what then happened was, well, the first 6 months was great because it was the honeymoon, going, with my son and holidays and all that. But after that, it was a bit of a nightmare. I was lonely. I had nobody to go out with, nobody to do anything with, and that was all because I didn't take time to prepare and nurture my network.
Yep. I agree 100%. I think, the key to this stuff is getting the right tools, is getting the right equipment or whatever it is. So, if you look at it back into business, it's getting the right software programs and all the right components. One of the big components is your network. It's about who you talk to.
Yeah.
And it's about people that you can trust, the people that will tell you if you're being an idiot, if you're not being true to yourself, or you're trying to do something differently.
Yeah.
And you can have that hard conversation. So
yes, I get it. Yeah. So that's your first big one then, is on the roadmap and preparation. Prepare yourself, nurture your network so that you can have something to retire to.
Yes.
Is that the gist of it?
It is. Okay. And then it depends. So, it depends what you want to do. I mean, one of the things we've talked about, Nick, and you can talk about a bit more, is about using the tools. So using social media. So
you want me to talk about social media?
I think, I think because your experience and mine is very different. So I try something and I don't like it very much and I give up. I sort of go, no, I don't want to do that. You tend to persevere more.
That's a very kind way of putting it, Andy. The trap the trap that I fall into is, I think it's called is it called the sunk fallacy or something like that? But it's a bit like a game of poker that you got your hand, you don't know what the other person's got. You've put all your money in the middle, or you've put a lot of your money in. Do you stay in the hand? It's a bit of a weakness of mine in that I do things for too long when I'm not getting results. Yeah. And my journey with social media is that I spent far too long on LinkedIn. Yeah. Trying to nurture my network and got zero results.
Yep.
Nothing. Nada. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it almost became all consuming at one point. Yeah. And you're actually segueing me into the second point on the preparation, where it talks about planning your time wisely, using your time wisely. So social media, I actually spent far too much time on LinkedIn trying to build a network and getting nowhere.
I think at one point you were a full-time LinkedIn jockey, weren't you?
Well, I felt like it, and then that organisation that you and I, accidentally fell into, they loved LinkedIn, and they couldn't get enough of us all sat on LinkedIn all day, could they?
No, it was a prerequisite that they didn't tell us about beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was a waste of time, complete waste of time. And bizarrely, switching my attention to YouTube, because you're right, I finally gave in, packed it in. I was telling somebody the other day who'd come to us through YouTube, he was asking me, why aren't you on LinkedIn anymore? He said, I found you on YouTube, and then I went to LinkedIn, and you don't seem to be inactive for about 6 months. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, because it was just a waste of time. I've left the details up there for people, but it's a waste of time. And I said I devoted all my attention to YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's been a lot better. Because started doing that in April from a standing start, and have now got 10,000 followers.
So what would you have done differently? So I mean, you went through that on the social media thing. So what would you have done differently to get to where you are now, Nick?
Right. So if I went back in the time machine, the same question I asked you, I'd go back and chat to my 44-year-old self. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would I do differently? I think the big thing that I would do differently is, well, I wouldn't do anything differently at 44. I wouldn't do anything differently in that first 6 months because I was just holidaying. But when I got back from the holiday with Billy No Mates, yeah, I think what I would do then is I would have reached out more in terms of alumni. I'd have been looking for organizations and groups of people that maybe were similar to me. Yeah. And I eventually found one. I eventually got there. And I maybe I should have done that before I retired, but the reality is I was planning all these holidays that I was going on, so I didn't really have a lot of time to do it. But that's probably what I would do differently. I would have been a little bit more methodical, a bit more like I was during my LinkedIn era that you talked about. I would have been a little bit more methodical about finding groups of people who were in a similar situation to me, give or take a few years. Yeah. So that I could use them to facilitate, more of a social life, to be honest with you. The human connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I would have done differently. I would have sought things out of that nature. To be honest with you.
What about the when you did LinkedIn, you got sort of all consumed by it?
Yep.
So
only as part of that organization. I wasn't all consumed with it before that.
But after we left the organization, you were still all consumed with it for a while.
Yeah, well, I was trying to find the outlet for the for my purpose. As we said, I was trying to find a way of reaching the target audience. I hate to use words like that, but to reach the people who I felt needed help. And I thought LinkedIn was that thing.
Yeah.
But my honest opinion is, I mean, I could be wrong about this. There could be people watching this who are mega successful on LinkedIn, but my experience of it is that it seems to be more for job hunters, for people looking for jobs, or for businesses looking for work. Selling stuff. Yeah, that's what it looks like. It's not there necessarily as an outlet to help people.
But I think the important, I mean, the thing that you talked about is, it's one of the keys in there. It's about allocation of time.
Yeah.
And spending your time wisely. So now when you're doing what you're doing now, do you limit the amount of time? If you've spent so much time, do you stop? Or is there the potential it can become more consuming again with YouTube?
Well, YouTube could potentially become all-consuming. There's no doubt about that. Although what I've tried to do is to become efficient with it. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I do is that I respond to every single comment, and people, and I do that myself. It's not a bot that's doing it, and I'm not even using. I mean, there's a bit of predictive text going on, but it's me doing it. It's not some. I've not outsourced it or anything like that. It's me. Yeah, that could become a bit all-consuming. If 10,000 followers, maybe if I got to 100,000 followers, yeah. But I think what I would do is I'd have to say, well, I can't respond to every comment, but I will respond to them for an hour every day, as an example. Sorry.
But I'm just thinking about it. These things are very personal because you do things very differently from me.
Yep.
So again, it's understanding. I think when you're talking about it, it's putting it together. It's understanding how you've personalized it to you. So how do you jettison the stuff that you don't like doing, and how do you it's tailoring it to
Yeah, you
your own.
can't always do that. Unfortunately, I mean, I prioritize my tasks. Somebody was asking at some point about my Google Calendar because it's all color coded, and I do prioritize my tasks and I color code them. So, for example, a grey color code is what I call it's a plodding task. It's something
Yeah.
I'd rather not do. It's colored grey, and I usually do that late in the afternoon unless I'm on a live with you. Whereas creative work is color coded green, where I'm thinking about stuff, and I put it in my diary. It's scheduled. If I don't feel like doing it, I don't do it, and that's something I've got off you. But a lot of the time, it's scheduled. I know my brain works brilliantly between 10 and 12. I'm seriously in thinking mode after about 11 o'clock. Yeah. So that's when I schedule my creative work. So yeah, I find that the easiest way of doing it is to schedule things, and then if there's too much grey stuff in there, I'll just limit it and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Basically,
Good.
Try and focus on green stuff.
Yes.
And one of the ways I've done that with YouTube is that when I first started doing the YouTube, I was spending hours editing the videos, and I just thought I've got two choices here. I can either outsource the editing, or I can find a different way of doing it. And I decided, no, I'm not going to outsource it. So I decided to start doing more like walk and talk type videos and just talking to the camera videos, no script, just talk. So it didn't need as much editing.
Yeah.
So efficiencies.
Yes.
Yeah. But could it become all consuming? It could potentially, I guess.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing it. I don't, apart from I like to go out walking, strength training, stuff like that. There's nothing much else that I kind of squeeze in. I'm not one of these people. A lot of people in the comments, for example, talk about how they do all these things. They've got like a million things they do, from cycling. I mean, I think, crikey, I've got a friend like that, Chris. I've mentioned him on my videos. The man has got so much stuff going on. Walking his dogs, motorbikes, bikes, Rotary Club, you name it. There's so many things. He seems to not want to be at home. Whereas I'm the opposite of that. I like to chill out at home, bit of weight training, bit of walking, but most of my time I like to be at home. In the evening, I like to watch a bit of telly. I've made it sound exciting, haven't I? But that's my retirement.
No, but that's personal. I mean, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things we've learned from each other is that we are very different. We have similar outlooks, but the way that we get to that's fulfilling is very different.
Yeah.
And it's recognizing that, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
But back to preparation, not wanting to go on a tangent about my life, but preparation. Yeah, I mean, I think in the videos I say people, you need to prepare. And you're right, the preparation is, after you figured out you what you want to do and stuff like that, you do have to get out there and start building relationships to figure out what you're going to do.
Yeah.
The preparations. You've decided you're going to sail to New York. You need a boat, and you need some provisions. Are you going to sail solo? Or are you going to have a crew? Probably sail solo, aren't you, at first? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going to need a map. You're going to have to understand the weather. Yeah, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like that. It's like that, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got to understand how long it's going to take, so you get the right provisions in. It ends up being quite complex.
But it does depend what you want to do, doesn't it?
It does, and it does depend on how much you want to dictate that, or how much you want to just let it happen.
I mean, I've spoken to two types of people off the back of YouTube. Okay. Yeah. There are quite a few people that would like to stay within their profession from a knowledge point of view, but go and become either consulting, advisory, non-exec directorships, all that kind of stuff. In other words, they want to stay in it, but instead of maybe running a business or being a senior manager or middle manager in a business, they want to take their knowledge and they want to advise and help others, but in a kind of solo, self-employed capacity. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's them. So let's just think about them. And then the other type of people I've come across and chatted with is they want to pivot completely. They want to leave it behind completely. It's a moment in time to not do what they did before, anything even remotely related to it, and do something completely different, whatever that is.
Yes.
Are you able to share any tips for these two types? Or I know the coaching consulting one, maybe you can. You know, what kind of preparation should these people be making, these two groups of people? Shall we start with the easy one, the ones who want to stay within their knowledge base, but do something more consulting, advisory, educational, whatever it is?
Well, I think the advice that you gave earlier on, you know, and the example of your father was something that was very poignant about the fact that he built his networks. He understood and he researched really what he could do with the capabilities that he had beforehand, and he bolted on his interests on top of them. So I think if you want to just carry on doing the same but in a different way, I think that is a bit easier. It's whether you define that as retirement or not, or
back to that what we said. Well, back
Yeah.
to what we talked about earlier.
That's right. So I think the retirement thing is about, and the other one then is about pivoting or doing something different, using the skills that you've got, but not necessarily the job you've done, and using and sort of following your passions. I think the former, it's easier to think about how you plan. The latter one, I think some people will think that preparation is overwhelming or unnecessary, and they'll just go with the flow, which is probably where I started. I know it is where I started, but what I found is that it's harder to find fulfillment. So it was trying things out, understanding what it is that you want to do. So financial planning wasn't ever an issue. It was more about, how do I get fulfillment, and how do I get satisfaction, and how do I do that? And I thought I knew, but I didn't. And it was about, how do I break it down to the bits?
Do you know now?
I do. So I know all the things that I enjoy doing. So I do a lot of things, but not in a structured way as you do. So I do more wake up in the morning and work out what it is, but I have a structure and a plan in terms of things that I want to do. So I want to travel. I want to play golf, but fair weather golfer. So I'll play when it's nice.
Yeah.
I want to do stuff with intellectual stimulation. So I've started up a group of my own for retired men, and I'm also a group of another one, which is a think tank, which actually thinks about problems and issues, all of which I find really stimulating, and
well,
I really enjoy doing it.
You're looking for mental stimulation, aren't you?
Yeah. But also helping other people through the mental stimulation. It's the problem. How can I look at it? How can I help it solve it? Which is what this is about, actually. Which is why this is really appealing to me, because it's helping people become the best self they can be, understanding where they want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe I can talk about the other one then, Andy. So you've given a bit of help there on the coaching, consulting, business advisory thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll talk about the full-blown pivot, where you just go into something completely different.
Yeah.
Because there is an argument that what I'm doing now has got absolutely nothing to do with running a recruitment company.
Yep.
70 employees in Yorkshire, placing accountants. Yeah. That's me in my 30s and early 40s. 63. This has got nothing to do with that, has it? So I would argue, and if I can just sort of a bit of context on that, I met a guy a few years back who was a CEO of a company as part of our thing when we went, that thing we were involved in.
Yeah.
And he saw his retirement. We talked about retirement, and he wanted to no longer be a CEO. He wanted to have a bakery. He wanted to run a small bakery and make sourdough loaves. Yeah. Oh, by the way, the thing he was running was nothing to do with that. He wasn't running a food company. Yeah. And that's what he wanted to do. Now, if you want to do something completely different, my advice to anybody is go and talk to people who are already doing it. Yeah. Once you've nailed down roughly what you've got in mind, go and do your research. Start reaching out to people. Go and investigate it. I mean, YouTube is an easy one to get going with, because there's a lot of people out there who've launched YouTube channels. You reach out to them, talk to them. Plus, there's a lot of people teaching how to build a YouTube channel, so that's quite an easy one. But if you fancy doing something completely different, find somebody who's doing it, reach out to them, and have a chat. That's why
it's the networking thing again, Nick. It's
yeah.
I think this all goes full circle back to the network. It's finding your tribe. It's finding the thing that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. It's the thing that drives you. It's the thing that makes you feel good absolutely. Inside.
One thing I've never been shy of, Andy, is paying for help.
Yeah.
Okay. So whether that be coaching, digital courses, whatever it is, in the thing that I then pick on to do, hasn't always led to success. You know, I've paid for things, gone on the courses, had the coaches, and then I've kind of packed it in because I've decided it wasn't for me. But I always think that if you're serious about doing something, you should seek professional help. I'm not sure you feel the same way, because we've talked about this, but throughout my business life, I was more than happy to join, be coached and pay for to be members of communities that were in the thing I was doing, and I'm glad I did, because I always learned a lot. Yeah. I always think the free stuff, there's a bit held back. Yeah, that's what I've always felt. So the other advice I would give people is that if you're serious about doing something, if you really want to be successful at something, then whatever that is, even if it's a successful retirement, then you should seek some form of professional help or some sort of community that you can join, so you can chat with people. It's back to the networking, Andy. Sometimes you've got to pay to get into a network. Yeah. And I certainly did that in my recruitment days. I've done that throughout my 50s. I joined communities, paid to be in there. And whilst I was in those communities, they were very helpful, and I learned a lot. Yeah. A lot more than I could have learned had I not joined them.
No, and I did the same. So, when I left my corporate career, I did exactly the same, Nick. I did actually pay for help.
Right. Good. So we agree on that then, that you've got to don't try and figure it out on your own, without any help. You've got to put your hand in your pocket and talk to professionals, experts who can help you.
Yeah, and there are all sorts of different ways. So I used to look for things that provided value. So some of mine were, a lot of the things that I did and I asked for help were based on outcome based. There was a cost, but the majority of the cost was based on outcomes or getting me to a place successfully. Because I always think if you incentivize somebody to get you somewhere, then that's a better way of doing it.
Absolutely. So it sounds to me like we preparation keeps coming around to people, doesn't it? And and when you talk about tools and resources, those are the tools and resources that help you in your preparation, aren't they?
Yeah. So if you want to climb a mountain, so one of the guys that we met when we were doing that thing, he used to take people up. Yeah, he used to take people up Everest.
Yeah, but nobody climbs Everest on their own. They have a Sherpa.
Yeah, and he also said that it was all about planning, and the plan was not to get to the top of Everest; it was to get everybody back down again.
Yeah.
So his primary thing was about safety. It wasn't about just getting to the top. It's about getting to the top safety and bringing everybody back down again, which lots of people don't do. So he planned it in a very different way to the way that other people planned it, because he had a goal, an objective in mind. And I think it's so important to understand what is your outcome. So if your outcome is just to stand at the highest mountain, top of the highest mountain in the world, whatever, then you'll forget about a whole load of things like safety and God, what else. If it is to, do the best that you can get there, but preserve your life, then you do it in a very different way. And I think that analogy is really important. So it's understanding what the drivers are and what the outcomes that you actually want to achieve and why.
Yep.
And that element of preparation is so important, because I'd say there are a number of things. So without preparation, it's really, really easy to feel adrift or unfulfilled, which is where I felt for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to set clear goals, and it gives you a freedom to enjoy yourself without feeling lost or that vacuum or uncertain.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think my takeaway from lack of preparation was that I ended up doing a series of things that weren't right for me.
Yeah.
And in some cases, investing quite a bit of money in those things, and so they were financially costly things.
Yeah.
Never mind the time cost.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that thing we did, it's not so much the financial cost of that, but the time cost of that was huge, and it was just the wrong thing. Yeah. Whereas if I'd have spent a bit of time back in my late 40s, early 50s, going through some kind of process where I figured out, perceptions and purpose and all this sort of stuff, if I'd have gone through that process, then, I might not have gone down some of the roads that I went down.
Yeah, I'd agree. I definitely wouldn't have gone down some of the roads. I know for certain that I wouldn't have gone down some of the roads. I wouldn't have spent some of the money I did doing some of the things because
absolutely.
Because it's wrong. That's not me.
Yeah. Which leads me on to, because I'm conscious that we're getting to the end of our live stream now. We always said we keep these to about an hour, didn't we?
Yeah.
Which brings me on to the final stage, which is that it's supposed to be a Q&A. We've been Q&Aing. We have got a few people watching. Just if anybody's got any questions for me and Andy, we're more than happy to answer them. If you're brave enough to put them in the comments, have you got any questions based on the topic of retirement, the pillars, any of the pillars? You can ask a question about. Feel free to put it in the comments. I'll wait for the comments. But whilst we're waiting for them, we never get any questions, do we, Andy? Oh, not many. I've had one.
Not many. We did last time.
Yeah, we got one too. So the next thing I was going to mention is that you and I have decided to create a coaching group where we're going to help a limited number of people with this whole series of pillars.
Yes.
The thing that we felt we could have done with when we were whatever, when I was 50, you were maybe around the same age.
Yeah.
We've created this thing. We're gonna have a group coaching cohort, and we're gonna guide people. We're going to be the guide. We're going to guide people through the 5 pillars. And if anybody is interested in being part of that coaching group, again, there's a link in the description. Just leave your details in the description. There's no obligation at the moment. We're just taking inquiries, people who are interested, and having a chat with people to decide whether or not we can help and whether or not they're the right people to join the group. But the places are limited. We're going to try and keep it to around 10 people, aren't we, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to sort of just elaborate on what I've just said?
Only that, as you said, Nick, we want to act as guides. We want to take people through the process so that we can help shortcut the time that it takes for you to get to a fulfilling retirement. But no, I mean, we need a minimum of 6 people to be able to start it, because any less than that, we feel that you're going to have you need other people to talk to. We've talked about shared ideas and getting ideas from different people.
Yeah.
I have some ideas, and I've actually applied for a job, something which I got from talking to someone else, and it sounded really interested. I investigated it. It looks like something that would ticks all the boxes for me.
Yeah. So this thing isn't a video course, is it, Andy? It's you and me in this kind of forum, in a private group, where we're going to talk and help people through the 5 pillars, so that they'll come out with a blueprint for a good retirement. Yeah.
Yes.
And we'll be available to answer the questions, in a live scenario. Yeah. That's the gist of it, isn't it? It's not a video. It's not a video course. If anybody's interested in that program, we're limiting the places to 10. We will go ahead when we have 6, and there is a link in the description.
Yeah,
right, Andy, sorry.
I think the other thing is we want to do it over a short period of time, so we'll do it, within 4 or 5 weeks. within a month of starting. So we'll take you through each of the stages. It'll be well thought out, and then there'll be a chance to sort of recap at the end and work out what we've learned, what we haven't learned, what we still need to do.
Yeah, so it's an accelerator in a way, isn't it? It gets you from A, which is what the hell, who am I? What am I any good at? What can I do? What do I need to do to make a good retirement? To B, having the blueprint for a good retirement.
Yeah,
and that process takes about 5 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, Andy, we're just on an hour. Doesn't look like we've got any questions. So I think it's a good opportunity to wrap up and end the stream and say, those that have attended, thank you very much for attending. I hope you've got something out of it. So it's good night from me.
And good night from him.
Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Good night. Good night.